a cell dies, right? A perfectly healthy, well cell gets replaced. And depending on what type of cell it is, it's how quickly. Is that in days? Does it only have days of a shelf life, or does it have years? So every cell in our body is being replaced, and then those waste cells die. Every hormone is being used, and then a metabolite is, metabolized. It's all these pieces. And so it's the shift of those, and then the organ systems that have to keep up with the excretion or the metabolism of them that are struggling, that then severity of the symptoms for a lot of morning sickness. And obviously, if there's a lot of systems involved and a lot of things and factors, then it becomes more severe. But really, like, that's what the experience of morning sickness is it's like, okay, now I'm not metabolizing out the hormonal waste products as estrogen is rising rapidly. And so I'm experiencing the influx of that unmetabolized hormone. And that's where my body may resort to vomiting, because that's a purge. That's a way I can purge it out if I had to. That's a way I could eliminate histamine. That's a way I can eliminate a bacteria in the stomach.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share homebirth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
and me, holistic doula and birthkeeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
Hey, Holy Wild Birth listeners. It's Brooke here today, and I have the special privilege of having a really cool guest in the studio with me today. Her name is Jess, and she is actually a root cause practitioner. She gets to the bottom root cause issues with some significant pregnancy symptoms that I know a lot of you have probably suffered from or have dealt with. So I'm really excited for her message of hope. Hi, Jess.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on, and I'm excited to share. So happy to have this conversation today.
So listeners, you just need to know that this is speaking from a place not only of somebody who has trained and learned things academically, but also somebody who has lived out the things she's going to be talking about. And I think that really matters to the conversation, honestly. So Jessica, will you tell us just a little bit about you and your background and how you came to be doing the kind of work that you do?
Yeah, so it's so funny when people ask, like, what do you do? I'm like, what do I lead with first? Because it's such a convoluted path to kind of get me here. But the Coles Note version is that I am a holistic root cause morning sickness and hyperemesis gravidarum coach. So I help women who are dealing with anything beyond just slightly uncomfortable morning sickness symptoms to really understand that this is the body's way of asking for something that we have never been taught how to listen to or interpret or comprehend, and come into this from a place of co-creation with their body and really trying to have a two-way street in terms of communication. So that is really what I'm working for. Now, there's a long history of how I got to this point. I mean, I actually am a registered physiotherapist in Canada, and even going through my own personal health experiences / training within the system, I was just seeing gaps. I was seeing gaps for my own care. I was seeing gaps that our systems want us to operate within a box a bit. So I would be working on someone's shoulder, for example, but I'm also training to be an acupuncturist. And so I'm learning traditional Chinese medicine, meridian points. And then I'm like, oh, well, this is actually not shoulder pain. And this is why it's not behaving the way I think the injury should behave, even though I was stumped on this before. It's actually referral from their liver or gallbladder. But I'm not allowed to talk about that, even though now, because I'm curious and I'm describe myself as like the 5-year-old that can't stop asking why. I'm like, okay, now I've taken a nutritional therapy diploma on the side to learn about that. So it's like I have these other bits of information that I'm really not supposed to bring into the piece, but like, you're not just your shoulder, you're your whole body.
Right.
And so much of it has been an amalgamation of both my own health experiences and different bits of wisdom, knowledge, education that I've taken. And while I do have 4 degrees and diplomas, I've also self-studied so many areas that have just been interesting to me and bring in
Mm-hmm.
traditional Chinese medicine, herbal medicine, German new medicine. So I'm kind of like I'm a collector of all the information. And then I try to really present a few things and see where my intuitive process takes me and where the client's feedback takes me in a lot of my work.
I love that. I'm having a vision in my head as you were talking about those strategy boards that have all the pieces of paper and the pictures and the data points and the little pieces of yarn stretched between them
I love that
with
you
like
say that because
tacks.
that's exactly how I describe myself. I'm like, those memes that are like a girlfriend has to find out what their ex-boyfriend's doing. And it's like got the FBI wall and all the strings
Yes.
everywhere. I'm like, that's my mind. Like that is
Sounds
that is
like it.
exactly it. That's how I solved for hyperemesis gravidarum when
Hmm.
essentially the narrative is that you cannot. It's just one of those things, unfortunately, like cancer. But it's like, nope. I just sat with those strings and those thumbtacks. And I'm like, well, this connects to this and this connects to this. And like, baha, I've got it. And then I share that information. And then anyone in the medical system's like, oh, cool. I'm like, do you want to know how? They're like, no, that's good. Great. We're happy for you. I'm like, but what? So
An
yeah,
underwhelming response
I
to
know.
a pretty important revelation.
Yeah.
So you no longer buy the narrative that it's just something that happens and oh well, suck it up, deal with it, get some IVs, and just wait till you give birth to feel better.
No, absolutely not. I have so many women and certainly in the industry right now, the leading research is that we found this GDF15 gene that produces this protein and if we can alter for that or we can pre-sensitize you to that, that's the difference. That's what HG is. We found the cause, therefore we're working on the cure. We're almost there.
It's a
And
very
it's like,
high-tech cure.
yeah. No, you haven't found the cure because you're looking for a single variable that you can modify with a pharmaceutical. And certainly, yes, you can suppress a symptom, but that is not the same as a cure. And how I know it's not genetic is because I can impart change on a client within weeks. I can impart change between one pregnancy and the next, and her genome didn't change in that time.
Right.
So,
Amazing.
your partner's genetics didn't change, your genetics didn't change. What we're talking about is epigenetic expression. And what changes epigenetic expression is the foods you're eating into your body, the thoughts you're thinking, the ability to regulate after a stressful event, the environment in which you are living within. And so let's do an evaluation of all of those factors and then make the changes where we can. And the more that we can change the needle on, from A to Z, the more that's just a reflection of how much improvement we can really make. So that's sort of
Oh, that's
that's where I
brilliant.
take it.
That's definitely how I've learned to think about most health challenges is that, yeah, perhaps you have a gene that leads you to be more susceptible to this particular expression of unhealth, but also epigenetics means that you have some degree of control from lifestyle factors into how that gene expresses itself or not, and to what degree.
Some degree is
And you're,
95%.
wow,
The blank that you're saying, the some degree is 95%. We have 95% control over the epigenetic expression of any gene.
that's so
Or
incredible.
up to that. That's the capacity.
It's just such an empowering way of approaching it, like so much better than being like, well, my parents had diabetes, I'm gonna have it too. My mom died of cancer, I'm gonna die of cancer too. It's so empowering, and I just love that God built our bodies that way. Anyway, so on your specific pet topic, so what was your journey? Like, did you have hyperemesis yourself
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah.
badly?
Yeah. So my journey starts preceding this. My journey sort of starts in, I guess, around the time of university. I started to have food allergies, anaphylactic allergies, different symptoms pop up that I was experiencing. They started to accumulate. And of course, I'd kind of go and like, hey, like this is happening. I'm in tune with my body. What does this mean? What do I have to do? And they're like, oh, we don't know. And so I got that answer a lot. And then in my master's degree in anatomy and physiology and working in hospital placements with clients and severely, traumatic brain injury clients or surgical clients, I worked in trauma surgery and different things. I had to be up to date on all of my medications and vaccines. And at that time, I didn't necessarily question everything.
Yeah.
Through being an athlete, I'd had a lot of concussion symptoms prior and like past concussions. And then, so I took my education in the UK or my master's degree in the UK, and it was standard for them to still give a live vaccine, but I'd already been struggling with some immune symptoms. And actually what I know now is like, you don't actually give live attenuated viruses to anyone struggling with autoimmune issues because they don't have the same capacity to create an immune response in the same way. I ended up having not a severe, but an adverse reaction. And what that really presented with was a reintroduction, exaggeration of my traumatic brain injury symptoms from my concussions.
Wow.
So at the time I was working in a specialist facility for traumatic brain injury, and I was working alongside elite level neurologists. And it's always a great question again of like, don't take this personally, but do you have a traumatic brain injury? So yeah, that was one. And then he started to say all the things and all the ways that in which I would be not so tolerant of toxins and chemicals and different things. And, I bet you don't tolerate having alcohol. And I'm like, no, I get a 4-day hangover, so I just don't drink now because I can't. And at that time I was in university, right? And I bet this happens and that happens. And I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. And so I realized that really did the vaccine that I was given and the adjuvants in that inflamed the brain injury that I had at
Sure.
that point. And of course, there hasn't been in many years a conversation around like, is this possible when it comes to vaccines and those types of things? And so fast forward, I kind of just start to decline a little bit in terms of my autoimmune symptoms. I mean, again, I was an elite level athlete at that point, and going from training for 3 to 5 hours a day to needing a rest after vacuuming my house was a big change. And I would go to the doctors and I'm like, hey, like, here are all the symptoms I'm having. My glands are swelling to the size of golf balls. Like, I can't eat. I'm never rested. Like, they did sleep studies on me. I went to an infectious disease doctor because they thought maybe it was mumps, or then they even were like, is it possible you have HIV? I'm like, I don't think
Wow.
so. Hopefully
Wow.
not. So they're just ruling out all these infectious disease things. And then it was like, well, let's send you to a rheumatologist. Let's send you to an oncologist. Let's send you to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Like, let's see. And I went through all these specialists, and everyone came back with like, yeah, your body's highly inflamed. There's signs of distress, but we don't know the why. And you're skinny and you're young. So we don't actually know what even medication to give you. So just why don't you come back in like a year, and maybe it'll be bad enough or more, it'll present more as the specific disease, and then we'll know how to
Oh
treat you.
gosh.
And
That's
I was
so
kind of like,
insufficient and discouraging.
yeah,
Ugh.
I'm like, do you not see what I'm trying to do? Like, I'm trying to course
Mhm.
correct before getting to that point.
Right.
So I listened to podcasts, I listened to a ton of things, and I started to resonate with people's stories and say like, oh, this sounds exactly like me. That sounds exactly like me. And I was simultaneously had my physio training that I was doing, and it was sort of like the education that I took was a bit of a different system because it wasn't in North America. And it was like, whenever you're presented with a symptom, make a problem list. What are all the things that could cause that symptom? And then let's start running mini tests to rule in or out these things so that list becomes whittled down to a few things that you can work with. So I started applying that reasoning to
Yeah.
myself. And so I ended up thinking, okay, it's Hashimoto's thyroiditis, it's lupus, or it's Lyme disease. It's one of these three things. I present pretty much as those. And it was, what types of treatments will work for all three? And I'll start there. So took my nutritional therapy and epigenetics diploma, learned about epigenetic expression, learned about environment, nutrition, etc. Started to say, okay, like what's the thing that I can treat that would work for all of them? And then I made a step forward and another step forward and another step forward. And then my healing journey was much like that.
Wow.
Fast forward, I get pregnant. And of course, at this point too, I've gone back to doctors. I went back to the sleep study person. I'm like, you know what? A lot of this is corrected by taping my mouth shut. Like, I learned about airway health. I learned about like all of these things. And they're like, oh, cool. And I'm like, but like, again, well, you only have 6 apneas an hour, so it's not like, and you're young and you're skinny, again, another, like, I got that a lot.
Wow.
So it was like, so you're really not a candidate for like a CPAP, and that's the only resolution we have. At some point, I heard the phrase, and it's like, it came probably in my physio career. It's like, if you go to a surgeon, their toolkit is to cut you open and perform surgery. So
Yes.
don't go looking for like a jackhammer and like by a surgeon. And
That's what
it
we always
became
say
this,
to people about hiring OBs for their birth.
yeah,
OBs or surgeons. If you want to have
yeah.
surgery, that's a good choice.
Yeah, exactly, right? So then I kind of like, I went to this thing and I was like, oh, okay, so your intervention is a CPAP. I don't qualify for that, so you don't know how to help me, right? And I'm feeding you back my information, and it's like, cool, but that doesn't fit in our fixes, so we don't really know how to integrate that. And that sort of was the theme. So fast forward into pregnancy, and of course I'm like hit with, I'm doing good, I'm doing good. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm throwing up a lot. Oh, I'm really sick. But I don't have an appointment until 12 weeks, and I don't really know if this is normal, and maybe I just suck at pregnancy. Or yeah, morning sickness does suck, right? And so I'm kind of
Yep.
sitting in that narrative going like, oh, okay. Now, fortunately for me, and had I not had this person, there was one woman in my community who ran a fitness program and was a community figure. And I had worked at a gym. And so we've crossed paths quite a few times. And I knew that she had HG and she'd been hospitalized the better part of her third pregnancy. So I had one example of hearing that this was a thing. And so then I sort of like reached out to her and kind of confirmed like what I'm dealing with is, yeah, not normal. And there is a spectrum, right? And I'm further along that spectrum. And then after my third or fourth hospital like admission, the doctor was like, oh yeah, like this is sounding like HG, why aren't you taking the medications we prescribed? And I was like, because the first thing I Googled says my baby will have birth defects. So that's why. And they're like, well, I kid you not, I'm laying in an emergency. A male doctor has taken 6 hours to give me some fluids when I've puked 30 times that day and haven't been able to keep a teaspoon of water in. And I'm like, I can feel my amniotic fluid like gone. Like I need something.
Are you saying he didn't try for 6 hours, or he was trying and failing for 6 hours to get a vein?
He didn't try for 6 hours because that's the hospital system where I am. And I'm like, I will sit in a corner. I'll actually go back out on the street if a nurse can just slide an IV in my arm. I don't need a bed. I don't need anything. And they're like, well, we're really busy. We have this new system. This and that's happening. I'm like, oh, okay. Neither here nor there.
Wow.
So he's standing in front of me and he says, I know we got it wrong with some things, for example, x-rays and thalidomide, but we're pretty sure that this is okay. So yeah, again, I'm like pretty sure just isn't cutting it for me necessarily. So that's where I was like, well, this doesn't feel good. The guilt of like, it's like I was conscious enough to know, like sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? It's like when you don't know, then great. You don't know what you're signing up for or not signing up for. But because I had known and I had been failed and disenfranchised a few times through, trusting these systems and these things, I knew, and it didn't fit right for me and it didn't feel good. So I couldn't commit to it. Of course, when I was in that dire strait, like, yeah, put something in my IV, that's no problem. But could I commit to like, this is the answer for me is just take these medications for the rest of the pregnancy? I couldn't.
No.
And so I stumbled across a post about morning sickness and histamine intolerance. And then I had stumbled across something else that was linking minerals and morning sickness. And it was like, ooh, 2 clues. And then the medication that was working for me was a combination of antihistamine and B6. So I'm like, okay, well, can I recreate those naturally in my body? Like, let me take a B supplement, and then let me figure out like, is histamine a problem for me? Like, let me start feel like, what does this sound like? What does this look like, etc. So it ended up being that, I reached out to a few doctors in the space. I reread the book at this point, like rapidly in like the bathtub. I'm like holding it above, like reading, Dirty Genes. I'm like, okay, what's the chapter on methylation? What's the chapter on DAO and kidney function and blah, blah, blah. So I'm rereading this and I'm piecing it together with the knowledge that I've had since reading it for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm starting to, like you said, those FBI connection strings, thumbtacks. And so I create what I think I reached out to Dr. Ben Lynch. I'm like, can I talk to you? I need to ask you questions. And he confirms a few things. And, I train under Dr. Charlie as well. And so I'm like, okay, like, I think I got a plan. So I put my plan in place and I don't throw up for 2 days. And then I throw up once on day 3 and then I never throw up again. Now this is from throwing up 5 to 30 times a day.
That
every
is
day.
Incredible.
Like, you cannot know the feeling unless you feel it. But having a countdown of like, I've puked 84 days in a row. I only have 100 and something left, that feeling of despair. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that I had morning sickness too. And it's like, no, you haven't hold your lips closed for 5 hours today so that you don't even think about gagging. Like, you haven't been sealed like this or struggled to eat one bite of a potato, but you needed something. So that's all you could do. So yeah, it was a big turnaround. I
should say so. That's incredible. How far along in your pregnancy were you at the time that you discovered your like self-made plan and implemented it?
6 months.
So it did. Okay. So most of your pregnancy you suffered before you found that solution.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't really like, oh, it was just 12 weeks and it was coincidence. It was like, no, I was really far along.
Yeah. Wow. But then did you not throw up for the rest of your pregnancy after that point?
Nope.
Is that what you're telling me? Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Yeah. And again, sort of going back to my midwife team, and of course I had a really amazing doula, but going back to my midwife team, and I'm like, hey, like, I've kind of figured this out, and like, this is what I did. And I had something else too. Oh, there was one point where my blood work, my ferritin was like off the charts high and my iron was really low. And they're like, well, we don't want to supplement with iron because that would be our usual, but you're already like, you have so much in the storage form. And that's, again, caveat, that's not exactly how it works, but that's what they're telling me at the time. Right. Of like, you have so much stored that we don't want to give you anymore. And I'm like, okay, we'll leave it with me. And then I like learned that all of our nutrients have cofactors, and we need those cofactors for the transportation of these things in and out of tissues, out of our digestive tract, into our cells, etc. So then I start taking beef liver, which is high in copper and vitamin A, a cofactor of iron. And sure enough, I changed my blood work within weeks. And I go back and she's like, I've never seen someone's levels change this fast. Like, what did you do? And I tell her, and she's like, oh, cool. And it's like, you just know, it's like, cool, or shut. Like, there's no curiosity about that. And
what do you think that's about, by the way? Like, if you had to posture a theory.
Well, I think it came up later. So again, there was a time where I had basically said, like, I'm open to doing the gestational diabetes test because I've seen people who physically look healthy and well like I do. And so I like, would you entertain me taking in 50 grams of sugar in an alternative fashion? And the answer was, are you kidding me? Do you know how my colleagues will look at me? Like, do you know how that will impact my reputation? Like, no, I'm not just entertaining this. So I think maybe there was a bit of that. And then later,
yeah, like the professional pride and like reputation defense.
Yeah, exactly.
Something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sorry, that was a side tangent question, but
yeah, no problem.
Right. So you solved your own morning sickness, and your midwives were like, huh, interesting.
Yeah. And then since then, it was kind of like, my burning passion necessarily wasn't in this work, or so I didn't think. I was really at the mindset of like athletics at that point. Is the clientele. Like, I thought I'm like a one-stop shop. I'm a physio, I'm a nutritionist, like I got all the things, like I'm great. I was working with a hockey team and stuff, and not at the time of pregnancy, but prior, like that had been my career aspiration, I guess. And then, it was kind of just like, where I didn't necessarily feel that my burning passion was necessarily morning sickness or pregnancy in general. It was educating women on the information that they don't know, and the fact that they could fall through the cracks of a system and feel lost, and sort of being like, well, I actually have answers to help you, because I'd fallen through the cracks with all the other things, right? With the autoimmune symptoms I was feeling. I had my appendix rupture, and I went to the hospital 3 times one week, and they sent me home every time and told me to do physio or take a Tylenol. And then they accepted me. They were like, this has been ruptured for days and we don't know how you're not dead. And I was like, I tried. Like, I've been laying in a ball in pain at home. Like, it wasn't for lack of me trying. So it was sort of like, if I can get passionate about it, it's helping the people who just haven't had someone see them and hear them and whatever. And so that has really evolved over the last 3 years.
Yeah. So that's kind of the why that drives it. It's not like you're eternally geeking out about HG, but it's like knowing you can give women back that power and that being heard and actually making a change instead of being stuck in a spin cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
beautiful.
Of course now, like, it's evolved, right? Now I have clients. I had 2 clients in the last couple of weeks who aborted wanted babies because they had no support and no other choice and felt it was for their survival.
That's tragic.
And then they're like, so now it's like, that's the impact of my work, is that doesn't have to be the possibility for somebody, for a baby, for a mom, for someone to feel trapped and lost and no one's listening to her. So yeah, it's evolved in a lot of ways. And it's, now I'm much more aligned in the purpose of what I'm all doing. But in the beginning, it was like, okay, am I really going to make like a job out of this? Like, am I just going to create this? It doesn't exist. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're an example of what somebody stumbling into something you probably never would have guessed you'd end up doing with your life. But
exactly. Yeah.
But when it's tied into those deeper whys and passions and purposes, it can become such life-giving work, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you hinted at some of the clues you were gathering about the roots of HG, and a lot of those are nutritionally based and epigenetics related. But then I think in your bio, when you first emailed me too, you mentioned that you also like to incorporate work with nervous system and trauma healing. So it sounds like you have this multi-pronged approach. Do you want to say a little bit more about those non-nutritional aspects of healing HG?
Yeah, exactly. So I typically tend to, and how I even did this with some of my autoimmune patients before it evolved into HG, and even in my physio, it was like, what all impacts that? So for example, if I'm talking about a liver, it's like, okay, well, nutrition impacts the liver, but also there's physical things that impact the liver. If your diaphragm's not moving around and that liver's not moving, well, there's a change in blood flow, or just movement flow, right? Our intestines, things have to contract to be able to move through and around. And then I was sort of finding other theories. So then I was I sort of went into this 3-pronged approach first with Western medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and German New Medicine, which I'd been self-studying silently in the background. And so it was like, okay, your problem, like Western medicine says it's this, traditional Chinese medicine says it's this, and German New Medicine says it's this. What feels resonant to you? What feels like this clue is onto something? What makes your body like want to lean in and listen to what I'm saying a little bit more? So that was really how that multidimensional approach worked for me before. And now I don't always do all 3 of those in every client necessarily, because I'm actually much more, my body tells me a lot about when I'm talking to a client. It's very intuitive for me at this point. But I started to see and realize all of the little pieces that came together in this. And so, yeah, what that looks like is, again, if I want to say target the liver, because that's one of the things that can be contributing, there are specific nutrients that the liver needs in order to carry out its function. And so that is one thing that I will look at and kind of assess. And from there, so now if I'm looking at the liver, for example, there may be, like, again, there's a nutritional need of the liver. And so it's like, let's assess if that is being met for your body. And that goes into a layer deeper of like, okay, well, are you intaking the nutrients you need, but are you digesting the nutrients you need? And so now we're looking into gut health. It's like this interwoven like domino effect on all of these systems. So that would be something. But the liver also processes or stores, it governs in traditional Chinese medicine, anger, irritability, rage, those types of things. And so it's like, have you been suppressing those? And is there an energetic blockage or lack of expression that is blocking the flow of vitality in that organ system? So we now have a nutritional deficiency is one culprit, an energetic blockage is another. And then we come into like more of my Ayurvedic stuff, which would be like, is there indications that there would be need for herbal support because I'm seeing that there's a pathogen or bacteria or something in that capacity? Like, are you showing signs of liver flukes? Or do you have really poor gallbladder function? Are we seeing that you have really sludgy bile and based on your symptoms, you're really struggling with liver gallbladder function or bile health? So then there's kind of that piece around it. So really it's like, yeah, I've got these multidimensional, which is how I can get success because that's happening at the liver. I'm doing that at the kidneys. I'm doing that at the gut health. And I'm pulling these things in and it's like, well, if I can't take supplements, at least I can do energetic emotional releases for anger and free up bandwidth in my liver that way.
Right.
So it's all of these different multifactorial approaches for multiple factors in the body. And that's how I'm able to get results. It's like, okay, well, I have 20 variables I can impart change on right now. So maybe I won't unlock the biggest one, but I can unlock 10 others. And that's going to give us a lot of steps in a forward direction.
Yeah. I'm sure discerning which pieces to go after first and in which way is that mostly intuitive for you, deciding which ones to tackle?
Yeah, really it's intuitive. And I trust that if things come up lots of times for the same, like it's so funny, like I'll have a client and they'll say something and then like 4 clients that week are all like, oh, this is the symptom. I'm like, of course it is. So now I have to deep dive into that and learn like all the intricacies or the nuance around that so that I can like sharpen the skill in that, right? It's like, okay, but like, my sickness is the most intense at this time. And then I'm like, okay, well, what are the possibilities of why it's that time? Okay, it could be lack of digestion building up through the day. It could be histamine building up through the day. It could be poor circadian health. It could be blood sugar because insulin's the dominant hormone at that time. And so then like, it's like, okay, so now it's these 4 things. Like, how can I rule in or out each one of those by talking to them? Or like sharpen my testing almost for those. So I use like sometimes muscle testing. And yeah, again, my intuition, different stuff like that to then start to like hone in on the thing. And then it's like, okay, this is my theory right now. So 3 to 5 days, we're going to tackle this. And either you get change and we're like, okay, we're on the right path. Let's keep going. Or I don't really get change. So let's tweak. Let's slightly veer off path to go this direction because I think it's one of these 2 paths sort of thing. So yeah.
So it sounds like you don't have like this, everyone take this little ebook I've made and follow these exact steps and it will work for everyone. It sounds like this is a very much more individualized approach that looks really different for each person because the factors that are primary in one person might not be the same ones that are primary in another person.
Exactly. And everybody is like, this is sort of the biggest criticism. And there are certain HD groups or different things that are kind of like villainizing me for offering these services in a paid fashion. But it's like, I cannot just give you a protocol because your liver function is different than your liver function. Your emotional trauma is different than your emotional trauma. Your expression of your feelings and how safe you feel in your home and in your body is different than how you feel. What you eat is different. Like, so I do have a course curriculum that has a library of all the information so that once I discern that it's yours, here's the information for you to dive deeper.
Yeah.
But the process really is individual. So
It
I've
sounds
got
like
kind
it.
of these areas. Yeah, exactly. I've got these core areas that I'm going to assess and overlook. And then it's going to be, each one is a percentage impactful, like is presenting in a certain percentage or quantity. And all of those are different depending on the woman.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, we criticize Western medicine for being so one size fits all and just throwing the same exact overpowering pharmaceutical protocols at every single person. And yeah, this is what's so refreshingly different about the kind of model of care that you're talking about, is that it is so individualized. And then I can see how that turns into a criticism of like, why can't you just share your protocol with everybody?
Yeah.
Why are you being so greedy and hoarding it? And it's not that. It's just that you're trying to offer truly individualized care so that it works.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many people that are like, well, just tell me what supplement you took for this. And I'm like, I can tell you what I did. I can tell you my exact
Mhm.
plan. It's not going to work for you because that's not the reason why you're sick. And
Right.
so what I'm actually doing now is deterring you off path more, making you waste financial resources more, because I know that's not going to be the fix for you. So it's like, yeah, it's a fine line really to share about like
Yeah.
what exactly, like, here are the areas that might help, but you also, yeah, there is more guidance that if you want to be efficient in this, you're going to need to kind of prioritize.
Yeah, yeah. Because you've dropped us a lot of really neat little clues about some of the pieces and like things to explore and think about. And I think people can take that and run with it and do their own research and experimentation on themselves. But to get, like, if you want to skip all the throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks,
Yeah.
having this one-on-one
Yeah.
consult would be the better path.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it really is, right? It's like I don't hold proprietary information. And it's so funny because so many people want like, well, explain that. And like, you don't know, like, show me your research studies. I'm like, okay, well, I can show you the research study on kidney health. And then I can show you the research study on this. And I can tell you my deductions between the two. But like, that's as much as you're going to get. And if that doesn't sound good for you, then you can continue in the Western medical system. That's you're here because you didn't get your results
Because
in
it's
that,
not
right?
working for you.
Didn't
Yeah.
work. Yeah, I had one woman sometimes say, she's like, I've had 11 HG pregnancies. I'm like, aren't you open to a different idea at this point?
And was she? I
No,
hope she
no,
was.
no.
Really? So what was her approach? Was she just doing the IVs and the meds and
Yeah.
suffering through?
It's one of those things, right? And again, and I don't want to have this come off as a criticism and not like it's not a judgment, but there are two types of people, and it's the people who believe that something happens to them or something happens for them. And
Yes.
for me, I always do like to say to my women, as much as you're struggling right now, and as hard as it is to have HG and have no support and not have anyone that understands, this will be the biggest catalyst to changing your entire family's health.
Hmm.
Should you fully lean in and embrace, what is this trying to teach me? What is my body trying to tell me? What have I been not listening to? What have I been silencing? So you can continue down that silencing path. And yes, you can go on 4 or 5 different cancer medications or antiemetics, right?
Yeah.
But you're just continuing to suppress that communication. So it's like, this is happening to me and I need someone to save me, medical system and pharmaceuticals, or this is happening for me and what does this mean? How can I
Yeah.
be curious to it?
I love that. Because I would suspect, based on what we've been talking about so far, that if one gets to the root causes that are expressing themselves as HG, one might also be getting to root causes that a field would have implications for other areas of your health for the longevity of your life, not just your
Everything.
pregnancy.
Exactly. And I
So
say,
it's healing your whole self, your future, not just your HG symptoms.
and this is where I'm really moving in my work, for the last like year and a half, I've said like, your husband can take this course and get healthier.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pregnancy specific. It's, I want to listen to what my body's symptoms are trying to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
For you, the symptoms are showing up as HG. For someone else, they're showing up as autoimmune disease. For someone else, they're showing up as cancer. What I'm trying to teach you is the health education that you never got, so that you can get down to the most primary piece to impart change on, and then symptoms disappear. They're just the waves of body communicating, like, can you listen to me yet?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so where I've really pushed forward, and I'm right in this transition right now, is like, what is the impact of that on your future generation? So again, traditional Chinese medicine believes that we have a constitution, and that constitution is passed down. So while we want to blame genetics, oh, my mom had diabetes, so I had diabetes. It's like, no, you learn the behaviors and the belief systems and the suppression of emotions, if that's what it is, and the eating habits and the lifestyle habits and the lack of prioritizing your health. That's the genetic part. It's the learned behaviors. It's not the genes itself. And so what we're actually doing at this point now is, if, again, so much of my work has been helping the woman who's pregnant and sick in the thick of things. They're in the trenches right now. Like, let me help you. But I've realized it's actually so much better to prevent this beforehand. And in preventing it, you undo all the need for all the work that you're going to play catch up on later. So for me, because I didn't know this information now, I spent thousands of dollars with tongue tie releases, lip tie releases, chiropractic work, body work, lactation consultants, because maybe it's a problem with me that's happening, supplements, every lactation cookie or this or that. And it's like, no, it's my nutrient deficiencies, and it's my son's, the nutrient deficiencies that were present in utero for him that created this fascial tension that now he doesn't have the pliability of his tissues, and his oral and his mouth, and breastfeeding is harder, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, now that I'm at this stage, it's like, oh my God, if I only knew, I would have just done these two. I would have eaten these 4 things, 8 weeks prior to conceiving, or this time.
Dang.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
and we don't realize, what I'm really passionate about is, like, we don't realize, again, like, I became that woman who slipped through the cracks and told it's stress, it's anxiety, it's this, it's that. And really it was my body being asked to listen to it. But I spent years feeling sick, countless dollars on supplements and whatever. And it's like, all of that changes when you learn the foundations of health and the things that you need. And if you do this prior to you conceiving, like my son right now, he's 3.5 and he's got a little anger issues. And I'm like, okay, your liver and gallbladder need work. And you're finally at the stage where I can start to cleanse you and do some of this work. But if I had done that for myself before, I wouldn't have to be doing it to him now.
Yeah.
Because the constitution that I passed down and the body that was built inside of me would have had more resources to build a more well-oiled machines. Of course, they come imperfect either way, but it's like I could have gifted just a foundation. Like, I can't give minerals that I don't have in my body. I can't give nutrients that I don't have in my body. How am I building a bone tissue when I'm deficient in calcium or whatever, right? Like, where am I getting that from? I'm pulling it back out of my teeth. That's why we have poor teeth postpartum, or, whatever. It's like my body was finding the way, but the way could have been so much more optimized.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is that going to look like for you? Are you going to be coming up with like a preconception wellness offering or program or something? Because I do agree. Like, and we talk about this. I mean, even how your birth goes depends on the choices you make during preconception and your pregnancy. Like, you can say I want a home birth, but the choices that set you up to have that successfully start before you even conceive, honestly. Yeah. So like, I feel like this is so important.
Yeah.
This is a legacy you're talking about. You're honestly talking about leaving legacy. Yeah. And it's like a nutritional legacy. Yes. But also it has so many implications and so many other things. So what do you suggest? What's the path forward?
Yeah, it's so true. And I just had a friend who just found out she was pregnant, and she called me like 2 nights ago, and she's like, okay, like, I don't know what to do. And I know that I don't align with that system, but like, what do I do right now? I'm like, you don't have to do anything. Like, your body knows. And the only thing you actually have to do is find out truly what type of birth do you end up wanting to have, and what provider do you need to put in place. Like, you just need to find the provider that feels safe for you right now. That's all you have to do.
Because she'd already done all this other work, you're saying. Like,
a little bit. No, well, just like, again, pregnancy, like when someone finds out they're pregnant, and this was my experience, it's like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. What happens now? Who do I have to call? What do I have to do? Do I have to be on a medication? Do I not? It's like this panic mode. And it's like, we forgot that the body just knows what it's doing. And if there's something that you want to be doing, it's thinking about what birth plan you want to have and putting the pieces in place right now. Because if you want to have a home birth, which she did, it's like, you need to find an aligned midwife, because not all of them are going to support home birth.
Absolutely.
You need to find a doula who's going to advocate for your beliefs, not their own beliefs. So you need to be in alignment with that. But that was not the question you asked me. The question you asked me is, what does that look like? And yes, I have it's in pre-sale right now, essentially, but I have just made a program, and it's called The Human Blueprint. And my business coach didn't like that name, but I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's the one. Because again, it's like, this is the blueprint for the future, for your child, but for the future generations, for the future of humanity. And what resources are you going to have to build out what's mapped on that blueprint, essentially? And so really, it's an offering that is going to, obviously in my world, prevent HG, preeclampsia, morning sickness, whatever version. Again, these symptoms are just the expression. They're not the problem. I'm not chasing the symptom. I'm chasing the dis-ease the lack of ease in the physiology at the foundational
Mm-hmm.
level. So it doesn't really matter what symptom you're trying to prevent. It's yes, that will be prevented because this is trying to bring you into biological harmony prior to conception, and bank up or store resources ahead of
Yeah.
winter, whatever it is. Like, that's the mentality you need to have. And so really, yeah, it's just a preconception optimization program that is between 3 to 6 months, but as long as really one wants to take it, because it takes 3 to 7 years sometimes to build back your mineral stores after you've just had a baby and now you're breastfeeding that baby. And so if you plan to have another child, it's like you need to think about this stuff already. Like, you already should be intentional with, how am I eating? What am I eating? Is this fueling the rebuild of my body after the most exhaustive experience I've ever been through, which is pregnancy postpartum, and just really stepping into a support system that looks like that.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. That sounds so great. So I hope we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would love to see women get on top of it like that
Yeah.
before they're already feeling and suffering so much.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, pain is a driver for us. So some women won't, and
Right.
they'll get to that point. But it's
Well, there's
really,
grace for that.
yeah, exactly. There's grace, and you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do know, and if you do want another way, there is that as well.
So you're doing offerings in both ends. You're dealing with people who are acutely ill.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with a preventative, proactive approach.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I love coming at it from a couple different angles.
And honestly, my preference would be like, I hope that no one ever gets ill, right?
Yeah,
And
course.
so, like, that's why I'm sort of like, I'm seeing that, I actually want to change direction slightly because I can prevent all those problems. But not only for the experience of pregnancy and, again, the HG and the things, but it's the tongue ties and the colic and the digestive issues and the sleep issues and the behavioral issues and the respiratory issues. Like, you will probably have quite a lot of knowledge and insight on this. It's like, well, that induction that you just got cut short the development of the final stages of the lungs. And so now your child is predisposed to respiratory issues later on. And it's like, if you knew that, you'd make a different choice prior. So it's really about just helping, like, the passions and the education.
I love this so much. I was talking with Lauren, the co-host of our podcast, before I got on here with you, and I was like, what else do you want me to ask her? What else do you want me to bring up? And she had a couple little newer theories that she had heard about as underlying factors in HG. He's like, run this by her. But this is the thing. You hear these, like, all these hypotheses. It could be this little thing. It could be this little thing. And after talking with you for a while, I'm hearing it may be a different thing for each person. There's not like one underlying thing. So for instance, the one that she was kind of recently starting to research was H. pylori as an underlying factor, and using fulvic acid or spoonfuls of manuka honey as a couple of things. So we can say that on this podcast, and someone can go out and try that. And it might really work for them, as it worked very well for Lauren's client recently.
Yeah.
Or it might not work at all, right? Because what is this particular person's underlying factor?
And so for something with H. pylori, it's like, is that H. pylori causing inflammation in the stomach? Is that causing a decrease in stomach acid production? And if it's causing a decrease in stomach acid production, well, then we know they're more likely to have dysbiosis in the gut because more bacteria are making it through, because our stomach acid is supposed to kill pathogens and bacteria that come in. So then we're seeing, like, inflammation, gut issues, etc. But that also could be that now we're not breaking down proteins adequately, because our stomach acid breaks down protein into amino acid. Well, not into amino acids at that point, but like it's the breakdown. It's the chemical breakdown process. And so it's like, well, those amino acids later are needed for the liver function. So this is why there's such a piece of like, I actually need to hear a woman's story, and piece like, oh, there's another tick in that box, another tick in that box. And then it's like, all of a sudden it's like, wow, you have 20 ticks in the box of the liver, and there's a few different factors feeding into this, so we can really work with that. So yeah, the H. pylori is definitely correlated. It's definitely a piece in there, and it's lumped under my category of internal pathogens.
Okay.
Much like parasites, bacteria, staph, strep, etc. would be. And it's all about, again, like, think of a fish tank, right? If the fish tank filter breaks and the water's getting really grungy and dirty, it's like, is that the optimal environment to keep the fish alive in? Not really. But it's just cleaning the water the solution? No, because the filter doesn't, then it just gets dirty again, right? So we need to sort of like, okay, and just peel back another layer and another layer and another layer till it's the most foundational piece that we can do. So yeah, H. pylori is present in a lot of women. And then it's, what implications is that having on your body? And is that implication part of the reason why you're struggling to maintain a state of ease in pregnancy?
Yep.
And then, like, manuka honey, of course, like, that's something that's like, antibacterial, like bee pollen, all those things. Like we know that they would be, they ward off bacteria and mold and all of that stuff. And they're also living, healing organisms itself, really rich in B vitamins, which support the liver. So it's all like, yeah, it's a lot of terrain theory stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, one more question for you. You're talking about the more than your average kind of morning sickness, more than people who are just feeling a little queasy for first trimester, throw up once every day or two. Like, you're talking the more severe stuff. But do you, in your experience, are there ways to prevent even just the run-of-the-mill morning sickness? And is that a completely separate conversation and solution set, or is it very similar, just a matter of degree?
Yes. Okay, so first off, there's this idea of like, is morning sickness normal? Are we supposed to have it? I don't know that we are supposed to have it. I do think it's very common, and I do think it's very normal. And I think some degree is not a big cause for concern, because there's fluctuations to hormones and demands on organ systems that our body is just getting acclimated to. But where we define the parameters around that is, you may occasionally be sick, but really it's like one off here and there. And you may feel slighted by your nausea or feel like it's inconvenient, but it doesn't stop you from doing anything. It's just like, man, I wish this wasn't here.
Yeah.
I don't think we would have survived as a species this long if pregnancy was meant to be sufferable, really, right? Like women would like, and certainly when we see it in the HG, and so many women are like, well, I'm one and done, or that's it, because I'm not doing that again. Like that was a near-death experience for me.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it limits their family size even when they don't want it to, just because they're so afraid of going through that experience again.
Exactly. And so are these solutions helping that? Absolutely. Again, it's just a depth to, like, it's like your car started to break down and it made a noise and you didn't listen to it. And then the check engine light came on and you put a sticker over top and you didn't listen to it. And then the car is like, okay, this is a full stop, like failure now, because you didn't listen to it. So it's like some of those things maybe, early warning signs. And yes, they would be improved with some of the turnaround. But yeah, that's really like what, I want to share on that. And then again, it's all like we experience those symptoms because so often, how can I explain this? So we have to metabolize out hormones and get them out of our body. Everything has a waste product. A cell dies, right? A perfectly healthy, well cell gets replaced. And depending on what type of cell it is, it's how quickly. Is that in days? Does it only have days of a shelf life, or does it have years? And so every cell in our body is being replaced, and then those waste cells die. Every hormone is being used, and then a metabolite is, metabolized. It's all these pieces. And so it's the shift of those and then the organ systems that have to keep up with the excretion or the metabolism of them that are struggling, that then severity of the symptoms for a lot of morning sickness. And obviously if there's a lot of systems involved and a lot of things and factors, then it becomes more severe. But really, like, that's what the experience of morning sickness is it's like, okay, now I'm not metabolizing out the hormonal waste products as estrogen is rising rapidly. And so I'm experiencing the influx of that unmetabolized hormone. And that's where my body may resort to vomiting, because that's a purge. That's a way I can purge it out if I had to. That's a way I could eliminate histamine. That's a way I can eliminate a bacteria in the stomach. So again, if it's H. pylori, like maybe that's a way, like my body is vomiting out the pathogen so that it doesn't make it deeper into the womb space and into the body.
Oh, brilliant.
And so that's really like when I look at the symptoms too, and I ask them, it's like, not only do I want to know the severity and I want to ask about their things, it's also, what's your prominent symptom? Is it nausea? Because nausea is driven by nutrient deficiencies. Or is it vomiting, which is an ability, like a lack of being able to get something out of the body somewhere else. And so this is the last resort for your body. And then what is that? Is that a hormone? Is that a pathogen? Is that a chemical? And so we have to dive in there. Is it fatigue? Okay, now we're looking at mitochondrial function and we're diving into that. And really, again, if we're looking at the more Western take on this, they're positioning themselves around the GDF-15. Well, that's protein is represented higher in mitochondrial distress. So why are we not asking what factors increase mitochondrial distress rather than trying to give a metformin or a diabetic medication to change the sensitivity to it, so that once you get pregnant, you're already desensitized. Like it's, it's a different sort of lens to look at it through. But really, yeah, I'm seeing the body as a whole, and I'm asking the questions that are just very blanket. It's like, you have constipation. Like, what shit are you not letting go of? Like, what are you holding on to? Right. oh, you're vomiting? Like, what needs to come out that's not going another way? It's like, yeah, there's so much nuance to the lenses in which like I flip between on the topic.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love hearing about it. It's so fascinating. And so I often tell the women I work with that every pregnancy will issue you different invitations to growth. And if we can choose to see them that way and say yes to that invitation. And so even as I'm hearing you, I'm hearing even this very unpleasant symptom can be an invitation to some real growth if you're willing to dive in and take a look and respond to what you find when you do that digging. It can be a really rich, rewarding process, I'm sure.
Yeah.
On so many levels.
And I think, not to get too esoteric, but that's what we come here for, right? We come here for a soul experience in a human body. And the goal of that soul experience is to overcome trials and triumphs and challenges to get to whatever it is we signed up for in the first place. Whatever we were looking down on and saying, yeah, like that. Okay, I'll go through that. I'll go through that if that's where I get to go after. And so if we, again, use that lens of like, is this happening to me or for me? It's like, okay, what this is for me. So how is it for me? What do I need to do? What changes is this asking of me? What growth is this, precipitating? Like, we can just get a little curious around that. And then the whole experience changes.
Yes. That get curious phrase is a special one for us. So I love that you just used that. Yeah. It's such an important part of the process of kind of navigating through all the things that pregnancy and birth throw at us and life.
Yeah. And it's like the one thing that the Western medical education system has taken from doctors and practitioners, right? I don't think they're inherently doing a bad job or wanting to do something that is actually like counterintuitive to best outcomes or improves, like statistics. Like they're not going into it being like, but it's just the curiosity has been lost. So they don't often question like, well, that doesn't really make sense, or that's weird. Because when I do that, this is the outcome. It's like, oh, just repeat the process because we're told to. And I'm so exhausted and I work long hours and I've been stretched so thin, and my education taxed me to the point of probably what some people would feel is torture. And it's like, okay. And now I have no, like, I don't want to say like will left to live because that's not it. But it's like, you're beaten down to like, okay, I won't ask the questions. And
no will left to get curious, no energy left to get curious.
Yeah. And one little caveat story is like when I was in my physiotherapy education and I worked in hospitals for all of my placements, and they said every time it was a service improvement project, you basically have to see what this hospital ward is doing and give them a suggestion on how it could improve the client experience. And every single time they're like, yeah, thanks for your idea. We won't be doing any of that. We don't have the time, resources. We don't care to change what we're doing because we're all in survival mode and it's just functioning and we're just going to keep functioning. So, and it
makes me feel sad for them, honestly.
I know. And it's
really
like
sad.
Nobody's really there to like disrupt the system. And that's what I think, maybe it was always in my blood, but even in my physio stuff, I was like, okay, I'm going to present myself I'm going to work in the hospital. So, okay, I've given up daydream of working with athletics now because I have dogs and I want to have a husband and a kid. Now I need to stay put. Now I'm going to go to hospitals. I'm going to tell them, hire me as a physio in emergency. And they're going to go like, why would I ever do that? And I'm going to say, because otherwise you're blindly sending everyone to x-ray. As long as nothing's broken, you're sending them home, but you've just wasted the hospital resources on x-ray when I can tell you it's not broken because they don't have a mechanism of injury to break it. Or if it's even questionable, then we'll do it. But if it's not, then we wouldn't. But what about all the other tissues there? What about their muscles or their ligaments, their cartilage?
Right. Those could be not doing well and those need help.
Exactly. And now this client is left saying nothing's wrong, essentially, because the x-ray is clear. They're lost in the abyss going like, it's been a month and I still can't walk, when that was great healing time that we should have been optimizing. The doctors are going, well, I don't know, maybe I'll send you to a specialist after that time. And it's like, why didn't we just fix this? So again, because of my training, I was like, oh, I should just triage all the physical symptoms and tell them what pathway they should take, but also send them home with resources like, this is your expected time of improvement based on the fact that we think this is a muscle tear. If it doesn't get better with that, this is who you need to go see. Go see a physio. Don't come back to the hospital saying it's still a problem and emerge, because again, you're wasting the resources. That's not going to give you a different answer than it did this time. And it's like, I thought I was going to change these systems. When I told them about my sleep study and like, oh, I mouth tape because I learned about airway health and the fact that my airway is collapsing is why I have an apnea and that's why I feel tired. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And then when I told my midwives like, hey, I got to change these things because I learned about the cofactors, or I changed my HG experience. They're like, okay, cool. It just dawned on me like, I'm not going to change the system because the system was built to function as it does. So do I serve the system or do I serve people? And I found a workaround, and that's sort of where we're at now. It's like now I'm direct service to the women.
That's so beautiful and so resonant. I mean, Lauren and I are in birth work, which is slightly different, but lots of the same heart and reasons behind the way that we work the way we work. So it's really fun to connect with you. This is such a rich and fascinating conversation. I'm really grateful to you for sharing all of just your story and all these little tidbits of knowledge. And I'm excited to be able to connect our listeners with you if they want to go deeper, which I think is something you're open to. Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll put things in the show notes. Where can people find you?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to give you you'll be the first official podcast that gets the new branding.
Woohoo.
So we are now going to be born from her. I'm in a rebrand right now. It has been the wellness element, and that just hasn't felt resonant to the empowerment role, really, and even birth in general and pregnancy. So what was my sort of all-encompassing helping women who've slipped through the cracks is being rebranded, and so born from her. But in case this is released quickly and you're in transition, it's either on Instagram, the_wellness_element, or born from her. And yeah, Instagram's sort of the central point of where if you want to get on a call, I offer a free call to talk about, like, are we in aligned fit to work together? Is what you're experiencing something that I can help with? Is this something for somebody else? Again, I have a referral network now of practitioners that I deeply trust. So I'm not the expert in all of these factors, but I know somebody who is. So where my boundary stops, I have someone to kind of come in and support in that. And yeah, everything else, programs, just content, everything's sort of centrally branched off from Instagram. So I would say definitely that, but otherwise bornfromher.com, and that's where you got me.
Beautiful. Excited to see your rebrand. That's exciting. And congrats.
Thank you so much.
It's always so nice to get more niche down and narrowed in and clear on your vision and your brand and all of that. That's exciting.
Yeah. Yes, that's where I'm at.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Jess.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.